and welcome to the Wise Leader Virtual Summit. I'm your host, Faith Watson. Are you interested in distance education and in how God can use your career to accomplish his greater purposes? Well, you're in the right place because our guest today, Dr. Anthony Pina, will share his story and provide us with some words of wisdom to help us understand how God can use your circumstances and career for his higher purposes. Dr. Pina, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to share with us today.
Well, thank you, Dr. Watson. I'm very pleased to be here.
And we're so glad to have you. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Sure. I'm Anthony Pina. That's Pina like Pina Colada. And I am originally from Southern California, but I've lived in Chile, South America, in Utah, in Arizona, Illinois, and for the past 13 years in Kentucky. I'm Associate Provost for Teaching and Learning at Sullivan University in Louisville, Kentucky, where I am the Chief Online Learning Officer, and I also oversee faculty development, and I oversee general education at the university. I'm an educational technology practitioner, researcher, author, and consultant. And the most important part is I am a happily married husband, father of 6 wonderful children, and for the past nearly 5 decades, I've been a musician, loving to play just about anything that has strings on it, as well as drums.
Wow. Thank you for telling us a little bit about yourself. And I'm just so excited about getting into your story and learning from you today. So our conversation, the theme of our conversation is a career and God's higher purposes. So could you tell us how you became interested in education, technology, and distance education, and how has God been helping you in this area?
Well, the first thing that God did is he put me in my family with my parents. Both of my parents grew up in poverty, my father in Puerto Rico and later in Connecticut, and my mother in California. And both of them pursued education to change the life that they had come to and provide a much better and a much safer lifestyle for their 2 children. After I had decided to pursue a career in education, I transferred to Brigham Young University at 26, where I took some elective courses in a thing called Media and Technology in Education. I saw it, I didn't know what it was. I thought, well, I have to take some courses. I'll take this one and figure out what that was. Mm-hmm. And it was almost like a conversion. The more I learned about this field, about how you can use technology to help improve learning and teaching, the more excited I became. And the more I wanted to learn more about it. It was almost like I had found a calling. I had come to the university to study something different and with a different goal in mind. But when I found this, I just felt like I had my calling. And God did all kinds of really interesting things during that time. The way that I got my first job actually in the field of educational technology was I had a roommate who I had known since I was 8 years old, and he was very much into technology. He worked for a company at the time called WordPerfect, and he taught me a lot about computers, and he taught me a lot of different things. And it turns out that one of those little trivial bits of information, how much memory a laser printer needed to print an entire page of graphics, led to my very first job in educational technology, because they were the professor who was in charge of the media lab. Sorry about that. Had said, we're going to buy these new laser printers, and this was in the 80s, so this was something quite new. And I said, well, when you do that, make sure that you get at least 512K of RAM on the printer because the printer will only come with half that. And he says, why? Because that's how much memory you need to print an entire page of graphics. And he says, you're hired. And I said, I'm hired? And he said, well, I'm kidding. Well, but not really. We need somebody in our graduate media lab to teach teachers how to use technology. Would you be interested? I said, absolutely. And that led to my first job teaching pre-service teachers how to use audio and visual and print technology and later computer technology in education. Those things I don't see happen by chance. Let me give you another example. After several years as a professional in educational technology, I had the heartbreaking experience of having my mother die from cancer before she was able to finish her bachelor's degree. My mother had gotten an associate's degree and had been working full-time and raising children and working little by little on her bachelor's degree. Well, my family's moves to different parts of California caused her to have to take her classes at different campuses of California State University, and each one had a different residency requirement. They wouldn't just transfer the courses. You had to take a certain number of courses at that college in order to finish the program. And even though she had taken all of the necessary courses to finish the degree, she was not able to have taken sufficient courses to fulfill the residency requirement by the time she passed away. So she was not able to finish her degree because of residency, because of turf and geography. 6 months later, I developed my college's very first fully online program, hard coding HTML into Notepad because there was no such thing as a learning management system then. And God let me know that if my mother would have had this available to her, then she would have been able to meet her goal. But now that I knew that, I had the power to make sure that other people didn't fall into the same situation, that because of geography or because of turf, they wouldn't be able to finish their degrees. And that this distance learning, this online learning, was the key to helping people finish their goals no matter where they were. And so God has helped me to see that by using tools and by using processes and all, you can help people meet their goals. And over the years, I have had hundreds of people, nurses, military personnel, healthcare, other healthcare workers, law enforcement, firefighters, and stay-at-home parents, and others with health challenges come to me and say, if it wasn't for what you do, I would not have my degree today. And I praise God that He gave me these experiences where I can have a career that I believe makes a difference in people's lives.
Wow, amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sorry about your mom, but I really like how you were able to use that to really inspire you to do great work, to help others while glorifying God. I just like how you were able to connect, your calling with a why. You have a why for doing what you do.
Everything that I do, I'm allowed to do it's bigger than just what I do.
Yeah.
So I see a hand leading through this. And in the next section, I'll give you even more examples of that.
Yes. So, and I think this question will help you to do just that. Psalm 75, verses 6 to 7 indicates that promotion cometh neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south, but God is the one. He sets one up and put down another. So could you share with us some pivotal moments in your journey to help us understand how God orchestrated your career?
Yes, I can, thankfully. There's an old Yiddish saying that says, man plans and God laughs.
Mm.
And more recently, it was rendered in the movie The Sound of Music as, when God closes a door, he opens a window.
Mm.
That's really kind of epitomized my life and my career, in that I've made plans, which I'm supposed to. You know, God wants me to make plans. He doesn't want me to just sit and expect him to do everything. So I make the plans, but some of these plans have met with closed doors and have allowed God to open an even better window. So let me give you some examples.
Mm-hmm.
When I first went up to college, I decided I was going to go into education. I had planned actually to be a religious educator.
Mm-hmm.
But as I went through that program, it turned out that the opportunities really weren't there for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the person in charge said, you know, with your style, you really should be teaching college and you really need to go into graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so I thought I was going to do this, but then I got this disappointment and saying, no, you ought to do this. Well, it's shortly thereafter that I took the media and technology courses and found where I connected and found my career. And so once I had determined that, I thought, well, you know, I need to get a master's degree in this to do that. And so I went and looked up and found the master's degree that I thought was most closely aligned for this. And I by that time, I was already working for that department, working in the media lab, working in the computer lab. So I thought, you know, this is all just working, you know, right out for me. And so the chair of the department said, well, we can't admit you. And I said, what? And he said, yes, we don't admit to this program until the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, you wouldn't even be able to start this program for close to a year. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, I'm just about ready to graduate. I have a wife, and you know, we're going to be expecting children, and I can't just not stay in school you know, for a year. And so I discussed it with her, and I prayed a lot, and I was just really downtrodden. And so I was walking in the halls, and one of the professors came up to me and he said, Tony, what's the matter? And I explained to him the situation about the degree. And he said, come into my office. And so he showed me a program that would actually allow me to build my own master's degree program, including all of the courses that I wanted to take from that other program. And I ended up with a better master's degree than the one that I had before. And so I thought I knew. God knew better. But that door closed, this window opened. So I went through my master's degree, it went fine. And so I planned for my doctoral degree. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be a tenure track professor in educational technology. So I went down and got accepted into a PhD program at Arizona State University, one of the top programs in my field. Had a great time. And at the end, in my last year, while I was taking my last courses before comps and dissertation, I got a message from my mother in California. And she said, here is this job description from our local community college for coordinator of educational technology. It sounds like what you do. And I looked at it, and I didn't even know that this position existed. At the time, what I didn't know was that it didn't. Mine was going to be the first one in California Community College for this position. And so I thought, well, I'm going to need to apply for faculty positions. So let me go interview for this position. They won't hire me. You know, they won't hire me because, you know, I'm still in school, and you know, then I find out that they have internal candidates. So, you know, so I go just for the experience. So I go and I interview. The interview goes really well. I come back, and I'm working over one of the labs at ASU, and I get a call, and it is the dean who had interviewed me. And I thought, oh, how nice of him to call and let me know that, you know, I didn't get the job and all that. And he offers me the job. And I was completely unprepared for that. But he offered me the job at over twice what, about 2.5 times what I was making as a starving student in Arizona. And with my third child on the way, it was difficult to say no. And so I asked for a leave of absence. They granted it to me, and they said, but you won't come back. And I said, well, yes, I'm going to come back. It's a grant funded position. You know, I'll be back in a couple of years. Okay, all right, sure. And so I went there, and I ended up in a completely different career. Within a year, I was in charge of 5 different areas of my university, of my college. And I had staff, and I had budgets, and I was leading stuff, and I was telling the leaders how to spend millions of dollars worth of stuff. And I'm thinking, my program taught me instructional design, development, evaluation, and research. It didn't teach me how to lead stuff. And so 2 major things happened as my career was changing. One was my mother's passing. Because what I didn't know when I took this position was that my children, my wife, and I would have the last 3 years of my mother's life living in the same area.
Wow.
Which for our first 7 years, we had not lived close to family. But for my last 3 years, I got to spend that with my mom. I didn't know that, but God knew. And when that happened, I had to take another leave of absence because I wasn't ready to start my doctorate again. And then afterwards, they said, well, you're going to have to move back to Arizona and reestablish a residency. And I thought, well, how is that going to happen? I'm making too much money now. I now have 4 children. And what am I going to do? And so while I'm trying to consider this, I get a call from a gentleman who identified himself as the Dean of the College of Education at La Sierra University. And I said, I'm not familiar with La Sierra. And he said, well, we used to be a campus of Loma Linda University. And I said, well, I know Loma Linda. It's a famous medical school. They said, yes, we broke apart, and Loma Linda now just does medical and health. And La Sierra got separately accredited. And we're looking to start a cohort in your area. Can we come and use your faculty center? And I said, absolutely. You know, come and bring. So he shows up, and they're inviting people from all over the area. And this was in Palm Desert, California. So Palm Desert, Palm Springs, Indio, Coachella, all of that area. And so they needed to do a cohort. And I said, well, tell me about your program. And they said, well, it's a doctorate of education in administration and leadership, and it has two different concentrations. One in educational administration for K-12, principals and superintendents, and the other in educational technology. And I said, wait a minute. Tell me about your educational technology. And so he shared it with me. And I said, well, I was most of the way through a doctorate in educational technology. He says, well, show me your transcripts. And he said, well, based on your Arizona State University work, you won't have to take the concentration. All you'll have to take is the leadership courses, organizational leadership, organizational culture, communication, all of those things that I needed to learn that I didn't get from my other program. They allowed me to create, again, a hybrid program that completely met my needs, completely out of nowhere. I'm sorry, but by any stretch of the imagination, I can't chalk that up to coincidence. I didn't know. I thought I knew, but God knew. And so I ended up with a doctoral program that, even though Arizona State University was wonderful, this one actually fit me better because I got the leadership training. Plus, I was able to develop or co-develop their very first online master's degree programs, something that I never would have been able to do at Arizona State. They wouldn't have allowed a graduate student to do this, but since I was already a professional in this, they wanted to do a curriculum and instruction with a concentration in educational technology. I designed that program. I designed the courses. I taught in that program. And that helped me to get my next jobs. Experience that I never would have had in there. And La Sierra is a Seventh-day Adventist school. I'm not Seventh-day Adventist, but I am Christian and I am a believer. And for the graduation ceremony, they chose me to give the prayer for the ceremony.
Wow.
And it was just a remarkable experience there. So, you know, I had planned for, while I was there, I left my position at the community college so that I could finish up my doctorate, and was working for a charter school part-time and for my university teaching part-time. And I was also teaching for Cal State San Bernardino in their educational technology master's program. And I was teaching for their branch campus, and the state had set up with that branch campus that if they were able to raise a certain amount of funds and build buildings, that several positions, including mine, would go tenure track. So it seemed like, oh, okay, now I'm back to my original thing, except that the state reneged on its promise, and they did a promotion freeze across the Cal State system. And so my wife had told me, we're not going to be staying in California much longer. I have a feeling we're going somewhere else. And I just kind of, oh no, I've got it all planned. So, no, we're not going to be in California. Well, then this happened. I thought I knew, but God knew, and he inspired my wife who knew. And so I ended up going where I never expected to go, Northeastern Illinois University in Chicago, as the coordinator of learning technologies for the university. That was the excuse for God to get me to Illinois. The real reason was that my youngest two children had been born. And my wife and I needed to find them and adopt them.
Wow.
So my career took me to where I needed to go. Just like it had taken me to the Palm Springs, Palm Desert for my mom's last year. And also my wife and I were able to found a charter school in an area that was a high minority, low income area. And we were able to make a difference in a lot of kids' lives for that period of time. Never would have had that if my career wouldn't have moved me there. So it moved me to Chicago. We found our kids, we adopted them. I had a wonderful time at the university. But my wife again said, I think that the reason why we came to Illinois has been accomplished. We adopted our 2 children on our 20th wedding anniversary. And within the next year, this position for Dean of Online Studies came open in Louisville, Kentucky, 13 years ago, and moved us here. And my career was solidified. We had a house fire where we lost almost everything. That taught me that possessions are not important. My family was safe. And it also taught me about how to be on the receiving end of some of the most wonderful, charitable people who filled our closets with clothes and who filled our kitchen with food while we were rebuilding. And then the other thing that is still happening. In my particular position, not only have I been able to work with wonderful people at this university that have great leadership and great people who change lives. But I had a work assignment to go and work with a group, a Christian group out in Eastern Kentucky called Addiction Recovery Care. And they were having great success at getting addicts out of addiction and into new lives by teaching. It's a holistic and very Christian, and it deals with repentance and forgiveness and the atonement of Christ, as well as the state of the art as far as addiction recovery. My adopted children's mother was a 31-year addict who had spent her most of her teenage year and adult years in and out of prisons. She had lost her children, including ours. And we had determined that we were going to maintain a relationship with her, and that our children would be able to call and talk with her, and we would visit with her. And she was, we thought any day that we would get a call that she had died. Well, after spending some time with the Addiction Recovery Care and realizing that this is what she needed, but she wasn't ready. And one day we just called them and said, are there any openings? And they said, yes. Can you switch over Medicaid from Illinois to Kentucky? They said, yes. They said, you get her, you bring her, we will work with her. And so we hung up the phone and we thought, what are we going to do? We have this information, we don't know what to do. Within 2 hours, we got a call from my children's birth mom, who we hadn't heard from in weeks. And she said, I'm ready. And so we arranged to bring her to our house. She was still strung up. My wife drove her 3 hours to Louisa, Kentucky. That was 5 years ago. She not only was able to overcome a 31-year addiction, but she became a peer support specialist, state licensed to help other people come off drugs. She helped to found their maternity center to help expectant mothers get off drugs and help them raise their babies for the first 6 weeks or so of their lives. This person who I thought would have died has saved the lives of so many people. She is now getting her bachelor's degree in counseling and guidance so that she can be a licensed case manager. God put me in the right place at the right time with the right people. I didn't know, but he knew. And so I can give you other stories, but these are just some of the ways that God has just worked miracles in my life and has allowed me just to be a vehicle where he could work miracles through others by putting me in the right place with the right people.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Dr. Pina, you said so much there. I am in awe. You know, we know that God is powerful. We know that he's amazing. We know that he's orchestrating our lives or careers. But just to hear someone break down their story is just so inspiring. And I just want to thank you for giving us a glimpse. As you said, you could share more. Oh my. Thank you.
There's more. My other answers aren't nearly as long as that one.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that when you came to this current position, this current university, you were a dean, right? And I know you are, when we started the conversation, you're no longer a dean, so some promotion happened there, right?
Yes.
I don't know if you wanted to mention that transition before we get to the next.
Yes, and so basically what had happened is my position was dean of online studies, and it was really kind of narrowly focused on the instructional design and the development and policies and procedures, and all kind of limited to online. I received a promotion to associate provost to facilitate my instructional design team and me having a broader focus on not just online, but influencing face-to-face instruction as well, and allowing me to kind of have the teeth of the provost when it came to certain policies and procedures and all of that, and really to have the ear of the provost as I dealt with all of the deans. It wasn't really to make me above the deans,
right?
But to put me into a place where I could have influence over the entire institution. And then when our Dean of General Ed stepped down and decided that she wanted to finish out her career as faculty, rather than completing that position, we wanted to make some curricular reforms in Gen Ed, and so I was given the responsibility over General Ed. In place of the Dean of General Ed, and we upped the stature of the three chairs over humanities, fine arts, and social behavioral science and natural science and math. They do most of the work, but my job is really to oversee this revamping and changing of General Ed in the campus. So it was really to allow me to have a broader scope and focus, rather than just focusing on only online.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. So you have been on a journey, and God has been setting you up, promoting you along this journey. And this next question might be a little bit awkward for you, but I'm going to ask it because I think that your answer will help us in our journey. Okay. So what are some factors that you think that God may have used to promote you? For example, what do people tend to appreciate about you, or perhaps have even noted about you? What are some of those factors?
Well, let me do that in kind of two parts. One about my employers and the other about my colleagues and everybody else. My employers have really liked that I'm kind of a jack of all trades. And I can take on I can take on, I have some skills and expertise that are distinct from some of my peers. Like, for instance, I established and oversee credit for prior learning assessment. And also, if admissions or academic services has questions about the legitimacy of a particular school, then they consult with me, because I've done a lot of work on diploma mills. And so, so I have this kind of weird skill set, because God's put me into some weird places, some pretty unpredictable paths, like one, being raised in a bicultural family has been one. Spending 2 years immersed in a different language, people, and culture, where my job was basically to provide service. That's what I did when I was in Chile for those 2 years. I spent time at a law enforcement agency, establishing and running a community service center for a largely migrant population. And while I was going through school, one of the jobs to put myself through school was as a vocational and educational counselor for the U.S. Department of Defense, to provide counseling and services for people who are retiring from the different military things. That's how I learned about non-traditional education and prior learning assessment and stuff like this. Also, during that time, I spent time as an instructional designer for Intel Corporation, and I had never planned to be in industry, but as part of putting myself through school and my doctoral program, thought this will be good experience for you to have. So now I know the differences within corporate and academic climates and all. Helping with my wife to found a charter school, like I said, in California, in a low-income, high-minority community in Indio, California. As a foster parent, and then as an adoptive parent, and throughout my career, I've been able to work for public and private educational institutions at the K-12 level, community college, university, all the way up to doctorate. I've had opportunities to serve as a faculty member, as an administrator, as an instructional designer, as a program evaluator, as a researcher, as an accreditation reviewer. And all of these things have kind of melded into this strange conglomeration. And then when you throw in educational technology and all that entails, my employers like the broad skill set that I have. I can change and adapt and do new things. And I just love to learn. And that's one of the reasons why this particular field makes me young. The technology changes. The state of the art always changes. COVID changes things. And it's exciting to me. The other part is my colleagues think I'm a nice guy. I'm pretty easy to get along with. I like working with people. I like collaboration. I love collaboration. And I think it's because I believe that I am a child of God. And in my church, we sing that all the time. We have a song called I Am a Child of God. And so is everybody else. And that fact is, and that fact helps me to see people in a different light. I believe that life doesn't end at death. And so there's a larger eternal purpose that gives me what I think is a broader perspective, and it kind of puts the craziness of life into better perspective. And most important, it prevents me from taking myself too seriously. And I think that's probably what people like, is that I don't, I take things seriously, but I don't take me that seriously, And so I think that's what has happened. God has blessed me with a love for people and a love for learning and improving and getting better.
Mhm, mhm. Wow. As I've been listening to you, you know, what you, in addition to the story that you shared with us, we could see God's providence right throughout. And then you spoke about, you know, your employers really valuing your wide skill set, you know, you call it jack of all trade. And then your willingness to change and adapt, and you love to learn. And
Well, when I got that job at College of the Desert in Palm Desert, California, I was hired to teach faculty how to use multimedia in their classes. Now, that's what I was hired to do. But over the next years, I became the director of media services and the staff development officer for the entire college, not just faculty, but just all staff development training.
wow.
I became the webmaster of the college, and I had three. I was the director of the faculty resource center. I had 3 physical locations that I oversaw in 5 different areas. I never planned that. I thought I was just going to be a faculty trainer and then go on to be a faculty member. And so God gave me all of these wonderful things to do. And with each one, I've been able to add something to my tool set that has been just really a blessing.
Mm-hmm. I just like how you were able to intelligently see that all of your skills really helps you in the next activity that you do. You know, the Bible says that in all labor there is profit. And so you really have been profiting from the different experiences that God has allowed you to experience.
And I like to think that He's able to use me and what I've been able to learn and gain skills to help other people and help my institutions. It's really what I like to do.
Yeah. Wow. So just to hear about a couple of things that you like. I know it might not really be easy for you to choose like a favorite Bible verse because there's so many, but I'm still going to ask you, could you share a favorite Bible verse or verses of yours?
There are just so many, you know, that some days it's Jesus wept. But really, I think that overall, when I reflecting on this, the one that really came strongest to me was Matthew 23:11, that says, when he's talking to his disciples and they're kind of, you know, jockeying as to who will be the greatest in the kingdom. And he said, the greatest among you shall be your servant. That idea of who shall be great among you, let him be the servant, has really provided guidance for me as a husband, as a father, as an educational leader, as a colleague, and as a friend. You know, I found that if the question that I ask most often is, how can I best serve you? Then it's really difficult for me to go wrong.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So another challenging one. Could you share with us your favorite Proverbs?
I'll take some creative license. I know you're not supposed to add to scripture, but the most funny one for me is, train up a child when he is young, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And I say, but the problem is the one who wrote the Proverbs didn't add the next verse, which should have read, yes, but when that child is a teenager and a young adult, the child will think that the parent is a blithering idiot and will go and do his own thing. But when he or she is old, she will not depart from that. That one's a joke. My real favorite proverb is Proverbs. It's in Proverbs chapter 3, 13 through 15. Blessed is a person who finds wisdom and one who obtains understanding, for her profit is better than the profit of silver, and her produce better than gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire compares with her. Gaining knowledge is a very good thing, and something I love to do. But being able to apply knowledge in a wise way is much better than being just smart or having a lot of book learning. Being wise and being able to apply is much better.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's one reason we're doing this Wise Leader Virtual Summit, because you're right. All the things that we may desire cannot be compared to wisdom. It's the principal thing. Thank you very much for sharing that. I'm glad that's one of your favorite verses.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what words of wisdom would you give to someone who is struggling to make a wise decision? Perhaps they're trying to choose between two alternatives or more than one alternatives.
Well, the first thing is to really keep in mind that not all choices are between good and bad. A lot of times it's between good and good, and between good and bad is an easy choice for a lot of people. But between good and good, that's where it becomes really, really difficult. And so what I have found is sometimes the choice is between great and even better. And how do you find the even better? Well, think about what in that instance and within that context, think about what your ultimate or long-term goal is. And which choice will move you further toward your long-term goal. Because you can have something that is really, really great and something that you really want to do, and something that's good and stimulating. And then you look at this other thing and it might not be as fun, but you say, okay, what's the long game for this? What's the long-term goal? And when you apply that, very often you see the difference between good, better, and best.
Wow, I love that. Love that. And sometimes I usually say, which one will give God the most glory? It's amazing. And because our ultimate goal. Thank you very much for sharing that. I like that. It really helps to put things in perspective.
Had to do a lot of that as a father, when you have to make a decision. What do I do with my child who has done this particular thing? Okay, what's my ultimate goal for this child? Is my ultimate goal for this child safety? Is my ultimate goal that the child will learn something? Is my ultimate goal to say, because I said so, because I'm the father? And at first, it seems like because I said so and I'm the father seems like a good choice. But then when you take a step back and say, what's my ultimate goal? You realize, oh, because I said so is not necessarily the best choice.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for putting some meat on that. Yeah, giving us a practical example there. So, Dr. Pina, we're living in unusual times, and leaders are faced with serious challenges and, often the need to make difficult decisions. How do you tend to approach serious challenges? And I know you just spoke about decisions.
Yes.
So how do you tend to approach challenges?
Well, fortunately, God has blessed me with a very wise and inspired wife. And I was very smart in that I married up, and the wise man is the man who marries the person who is smarter than he is. So when I have serious challenges that are, almost existential challenges, I discuss first with her, and then and we discuss things together. And then I discuss with God in prayer,
Mm.
sometimes with her, sometimes at myself. And I ask for wisdom and charity. And then I conduct my research. And then I make a decision. If the situation is more of a work-related situation or a more confidential situation, then with my wife, of course, I wouldn't discuss things that would compromise confidentiality. But we do discuss general principles together. And I also have wonderful people on my team, my instructional designers, my instructional technologists, my colleagues, who I can also seek out for wisdom and counsel. And then I get on my knees, and then I do my research, and then I make a decision.
So you mentioned that you have a wise wife. You discuss things with her, and you talk to God about it. You ask him for wisdom. You do research. You look at general principles. You have colleagues too that you can draw on, and you make a decision from there.
Well, I like to surround myself with smart and wise people.
Yes.
And I've been blessed because of that.
Yes, the Bible is saying a multitude of counselors, there is wisdom, there is safety. Thanks for sharing that. Are there any resources, helpful resources that you would recommend for our audience to review?
Well, getting back to educational technology and distance learning, what I've found, this might sound a little self-serving, but I've learned a whole lot from the stories and leadership lessons of my colleagues. I have been very blessed to be part of a professional association, the Association for Educational Communications and Technology, or AECT, where I have a pretty significant network of people who are my colleagues and my friends, and we know we can count on each other. And my friend Chris Miller from Morehead State and I were doing a session at AECT, and had read a book in our field of stories of women who were in many ways pioneers in the future in the discipline of educational technology and their stories. And he and I thought, we really need to collect the stories of our leaders.
Wow.
In the field. And some of these were some of the same people and all of that. And so we collected these into a book called Lessons in Leadership in the Field of Educational Technology. And published that through Springer. So again, saying, oh, well, I recommend my book. That seems kind of self-serving. Let me qualify this a little bit if I can. One is, because we wanted to share it as much as we can, and we realize that Springer needs to make money. We brokered a deal where, in lieu of royalties, that the book would be made available for free to members of AECT. So if you are a member of AECT, you can log into the website and access a free ebook of our book. The stories are inspirational, and they tend to involve a lot of people like myself who didn't set out to be leaders, and who leadership kind of found them rather than there. So it's available for free through AECT, or of course it can be purchased through the regular outlets. I put a link to that in the paper. So that's one resource. Another resource, which is absolutely free and which I draw inspiration from constantly. In fact, even today, I went and reread, re-listened. For the faithful, the story of Joseph, the son of Jacob, of coat of many colors fame, is an example of someone who overcame fierce adversity, even within his own family, and his own people.
Mhm.
He overcame false witnesses. He was imprisoned falsely and unrighteously.
Mhm.
And no matter what adversity he faced it with faith, he faced it with integrity, and he faced it with wisdom. And so he was able to rise in every situation that he was. And finally, to become a leader who was in a position not only to save thousands of lives, but also to be in a position to forgive those who had wronged him.
Mm.
And one who recognized the hand of God in his life.
Mm.
So that one we can draw resources from, Joseph, Daniel, Abraham, so many others,
Mhm.
Jesus,
Yes.
so many others. And even Paul, even though Paul liked to duke it out with some people,
Mhm.
but the Apostle Paul as well.
Yeah.
The scriptures give us wonderful examples of
Mhm.
helpful resources for our leadership journey.
Wow. Well said. Well said.
Thank
Well,
you.
Dr. Pina, you have shared so much with us today. Could you leave our audience with a call to action and an encouragement or a word of wisdom?
Sure. Make a plan and follow your plan, but be open if God has a better plan.
Wow. Well said. Dr. Pina, thank you very much for taking this time to share such practical words of wisdom today. And viewers, thank you for taking the time to listen to his amazing story and words of wisdom. And remember, we are going to be linking in the video description below all the resources that are associated with this interview. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to help me to reflect on really how truly blessed I am.
You are most welcome.